Good evening, everyone. You're welcome back to another episode of the Lessons from the Scriptures series. And today we're going to be learning a few lessons from the life of Joseph the dreamer, Joseph the son of Jacob. Yes, we are going to be drawing a few lessons from his life experiences. And we are going to be reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verses 3 to 8, and the same book of Genesis, chapter 42, verse 6. But firstly, we'll be reading from the first chapter out of the two chapters we'll be reading from for today's message, for today's video. And that is the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verses 3 to 8. And it says, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words." Yes, that is Joseph having a dream and sharing the dream with his brothers. He also had a second dream which he shared with his brother again in the subsequent verses, where he saw his stars standing uprightly, and he said he observed the stars of his brothers making the same respectful gesture, making a bow to him in the second dream. And they just knew that, man, we are not going to be able to handle this guy anymore. And what happened afterwards? At first they conspired to kill him, just to get rid of him, because they already had gotten so irritated of him. They were filled with so much hatred towards him. They were already enraged at him. They were envious of him, and just felt the best way to stop this dream from coming to pass, or these dreams from coming to pass, was to get rid of him. But along the way, their senior brother Reuben intervened and asked that Joseph should not be killed. And eventually they sold him to Ishmaelite businessmen that were passing along and heading to Egypt for 20 pieces of silver. And he ended up in Potiphar's house. And we all know how the story went from there on. Number one lesson from this story is never share every one of your dreams with people, no matter how familiar or how close or how related the people around you seem to be to you. It is not every dream you share with people. Both literal dreams and dreams that has to do with personal visions and ambitions for the future. There are certain dreams or future plans or ambitions that one has just got to keep to oneself, because a lot of people at hearing those dreams will be resentful, will become easily resentful and offended. Yes, so a lot of people are not going to be happy about it, and they're just going to look for every possible way to stop that dream from coming to pass and becoming a reality. That's number one. Number two is, the second lesson is, even when you have gone ahead to share your dreams with people, or you had that dream and you wrote it down, you either share with a few persons or maybe you just kept it with yourself. That dream is never going to come to pass until you have worked towards the actualization of that dream. What do I mean? In the story we just read, the story of Joseph that was sold to Potiphar, that happens to be a second command to Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt. He didn't just sit back and was just lazing around. He developed his gift or talent of dreams interpretation, and he kept on working when he was in prison. He still served. The scripture recorded that he served the people, fellow inmates, very diligently, and was hardworking. Even when those two guys had those dreams, he gave them the interpretation. That just shows how diligent and how spiritually disciplined he was at listening to dreams and interpreting them. That's a whole lot of hard work. Though one might want to say that it's a natural talent or gift given to him, divine talent has been given to him, but he also didn't just relax, sit back, and then start looking at the talents that is hidden within him to just go on running by itself or displaying itself. He had to work on himself, develop his spiritual discipline, spoke to God, prayed more regularly, and then it's a whole lot of work. Yeah, the third lesson, the number 3 lesson from the story of Joseph is you should not say because you have a vision, you have a dream, God has shown you what your future is gonna look like, then you should not just go on and start living recklessly. Living recklessly is definitely gonna hinder the dream from coming to reality. Looking at the case study of Joseph, he had the dream and he knew that he was gonna get to a position in life where those dreams will come true. He didn't consider the fact that, the dream has been given, it's definitely gonna come through regardless of how I live my life, what I decide to do on a daily basis. No, he was disciplined enough to tell himself that no, I'm not gonna live a reckless, immoral, sinful life. That was why when Potiphar's wife approached him to have an immoral relationship with her, he instantly declined and said, no, I'm not gonna sin against God. And he said to himself and also to Potiphar's wife, I'm not gonna sin against God and also against my master by extension. And as a result of that, he fled, even though he still got punished because the lady eventually lied against him because he declined the offer or the request for them to have an immoral affair together. So that's the third lesson. Do not be reckless. I know temptations are rife all over the place at this time that we live in, at this period that we live in. There are lots of temptations everywhere, both for men and women. But the ability for one to hold oneself and say, no, I'm not gonna live a reckless, sinful, and immoral life. It's something that is very vital to becoming great and achieving one's dreams and visions and goals in life. Assuming Joseph had gone ahead and slept with that lady, he probably will have remained in prison for the rest of his life. Probably even get executed along the way. Number 4 lesson is no matter what you try to do to stop a person's vision or dreams, it will definitely always come to pass. Once a person has been destined for greatness or destined to achieve certain notable things in life, it's definitely gonna happen, whether humans try to stop them or not. Even the devil could only try. It's never gonna be able to stop it. Once a person has been destined for greatness and for a notable achievement in life. And we'll be reading again from the scripture, the second scripture that we'll be reading to confirm the realization or the fulfillment of that dream that he had years past, that he shared with his brother, that prompted them to hate him and they made an attempt to kill him, and eventually they sold him. From Genesis 42 verse 6. And Joseph was the governor over the land of Egypt, and it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Yes, the dream eventually came true. The same dream that Joseph had earlier shared with his brothers that made them to hate him and attempted to kill him, but eventually sold him away. eventually came to pass. When they came in search for food in Egypt, all the way from the land of Canaan, they had to go on a sojourn down to Egypt in search of food. And unknown to them, that Joseph, their brother, the same brother that they had hated on, they are sold away. Many years past, had become the governor of the land of Egypt, the same land of Egypt where they were headed in search for food, because there was great famine in the land of Canaan. So the dream eventually came true. It's never in anyone's hand, the hands of any human, to stop any dream or vision that has been given, or that God has given to any of his children. It's definitely gonna come to pass, whether it takes a long time for it to come to fulfillment or not. It's definitely gonna come to pass. That's another lesson. So there's no point making efforts in futility, trying to stop somebody that you have discovered around you to have great ambitions or great visions for his or her future. Trying to frustrate them, it's not gonna yield much positive results. It's not gonna yield any good fruits. It's because it will definitely still come to pass. I remember some 5 years ago, when I was still living in Lagos, Nigeria, I had a dream about a neighbor of mine. I saw that he traveled abroad. He traveled to somewhere, in the West. And I shared the dream with him. I wasn't resentful. I didn't resent him. I didn't become envious. I shared it freely with him. I saw him travel abroad and came home around sometime later during that same dream. And 2 years afterwards, I had a chat. We had both left the neighborhood, the house where we both lived, when I had that dream. Then I just chatted him. I was just checking on him. I was like, "Oh, how is it going with you and your family? How's everything?" And he told me, "Oh, well, we are doing good. We are fine, but I'm in Canada now." And I'm like, "Wow." And I said, "Do you remember the dream I had of you traveling abroad?" And I shared with you. He said, "Yeah." And he said jokingly, "Oh, you are the Joseph of our time." And I just laughed it off. And it eventually came to pass. There was no point trying to resent him or trying to be jealous of him or be envious of him, because I saw it in the dream that I traveled abroad. Because he eventually came to pass, one way or the other. It happened. So that was it. That's the fourth lesson. The fifth lesson is, at the end of the day, Joseph forgave his brothers. After he eventually revealed his identity to them, he forgave them and then let go of the evil that they had done to him in the past. And the forgiveness is also key. We cannot continue to hold grudges against people forever or for so long. There comes a time when you are risen above a certain level of hatred or hostility that has been shown to you, and then you just know that, oh yeah, I've gone past that and it's now in the past and I've moved on from that. And then when people who have wronged you have come to the realization that they messed up, the next thing to do is just forgive them, because that's even what God requires of us every day. Just like it was mentioned in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses, just as we forgive those who trespass against us. He expects us to forgive other people who have wronged us, because we also look forward to receiving forgiveness from him. So those are the 5 lessons that I've derived from the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. Hope you all have learned something today. I know there might be few more lessons, to be picked from that story, but those are the 5 major lessons that I personally derived from that story. I look forward to sharing more lessons from the scriptures with you guys in the coming weekend. God bless you all. Have a nice week. Bye.